Hi, this is Eric Metzger, Director of Integration Advocacy, and I'm here with my partner, Mark Butterworth, who is the Integration Coordinator. And we are here to talk to you today about a seat at the table, which is an introductory short course about just the very basic fundamentals, elements, and the ideas behind integration. And as you see on your screen, presence, participation, and partnership. This is not going to cover technical aspects. It really is your first shot at, hey, why do we do this? What are the important elements, and how do we get started? There will be a number of other sessions that we'll provide for you in terms of technical support, and how do you really do it? Where's the rubber meet the road? All those kinds of things, as well as we'll share stories, all that stuff in the future, and we'll give you opportunity to ask for any support that you need. So we'll cover all of that, and let's get started. Okay, the very first thing you see here is just a slide that says open. And what does that mean? Is the community is inviting, okay? And we're going to talk about that through this. We hear a lot of comments that people oftentimes intimidated by community or feel it's not welcoming. Our experience, we're out there every day, is that it's tremendously inviting. But it's also the real world, and there are some people that aren't always nice, so we'll talk about that piece and what we do there. But for the most part, we find it fascinating and welcoming. But you have, as providers, asked a couple questions of us that really caused us to produce this webinar. One is, how do we discover gifts, talents, skills, and interests in those we serve? That isn't always easy. How do we do that, especially for people that may not communicate in traditional ways? Two, how do I go about finding a hospitable person or place in the community to match a person with? I don't always know where to start. How can an activity become a possibility for engagement? There's a big difference between activity and engagement, and that is a primary and core fundamental of integration. We'll talk about that as well. And who does all of this? So those are the basic things that we're going to talk about today. Again, we plan to do about 30 minutes, and so we hope that it is really powerful for you, quick, easy, and really gives you a good start to integration. Okay, the very first slide here, you see loneliness and isolation, the real enemies. What you're looking at, obviously, is a patio of somebody that we serve. We saw this picture, and we thought, you know what, it would take 5 minutes to clean that up and make it really hospitable. If you look, there is a welcoming mat, and there is a plastic dog in the right upper-hand corner. The chairs are fairly nice, but there's nothing welcoming about that the way it is now. Again, with very little support, we could clean that up and have a very nice party, invite people over, invite the neighbors over, whatever, and all of a sudden that starts to change the whole dynamic there and probably the life of the person there.
And I think that's a good, just a good symbolic thing for looking at the community about how it can enrich somebody's life. But just a little sprucing up, a little connection, things like that. It's just going to make everything, including the community, it's just a whole lot better. So we start off with the first question. What is a gift? How do we find our own gifts? How are we able to identify gifts in others? Generally speaking, just for ease, oftentimes we like to refer to gifts as being gifts of the head, gifts of the hands, or gifts of the heart. What do those mean? Oh, a gift of the head, maybe that would be you're smart. Maybe you're creative. Maybe you've got a great memory. Those are all great examples of sort of mental stuff that's good for you. Gifts of the heart, maybe at the very least you can listen well. You're empathetic. You can make somebody smile. Gifts of the hands might be more practical. Maybe you can build things. Maybe you can plant things or grow things. So we'd like to think that, obviously, first off, every one of us, every human being has some sort of gift. Absolutely must believe that that's the asset part to this asset-based approach. We must find one thing, at least, that we're all very good at. So look for those gifts. How do you find them? Well, typically we would communicate, either through words, gestures. Now, if you are non-traditional in your communication pattern, you may just need to do some nonverbal observations. What's the person's expression on their face when they're out? Are they happy? Do they appear happy? Those are pretty obvious. But clearly communicating in some way, shape, or fashion is important because we really have to get to know someone. Really, really have to get to know someone to really understand what their gifts are. There might be some obvious ones, but the more that we become intimate with that person and know more about them, I believe the more gifts we will discover in them. So this is not a quick, take a clipboard in process. This is very much just engaging in a relationship with this person and finding out what their gifts are, what their skills are, what their interests are. Now, the second thing there is the preferences or interests. What are they into? What do they like to do? What do they tell you they like to do? Maybe you could ask a family member. Maybe they're pretty clear on what they actually enjoy doing or are interested in. Maybe they're not. Sometimes we're all like that, myself included, that, I don't know what I want to do next year. I think we refer to that as the discovery phase, which is just a fancy word of like walking around and trying to figure out what I might want to do next. That's very normal, I think, for all humans that, I don't know. So we'll just go out and discover. We'll go out and explore. We'll try something, see if it fits, see if I like it. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Might have an interest in, doing some work with horses or something. You might think you do, and then you go out to a horse farm and you have a really awful time, and you're like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe you think you might want to try some container gardening, and you get matched up with some great people in your community, and you grow wonderful jalapenos, and you're like, yeah, I really liked it. So it's okay if people don't know what it is that they're interested in. That's all the more reason to get out and explore and try it. We have to remind everybody that everyone is unique. So we can talk about certain interests that we all share, or the common ones, but each person and each family are going to be unique. And again, that is the reason why we really have to get to know the person and exchange some information. Finally, aside from the communication and verbal or nonverbal stuff, look around somebody's house. Look around your house. What's out on your coffee table? What's hanging on your wall? What's hanging on your refrigerator? If you have some books on your coffee table, are they art books? Because if they are, that probably tells me you might be interested in art. If there's a Bible, maybe you're interested in spiritual stuff. If there's a how-to, how to grow good stuff in your backyard, that would be a clue. I also like the refrigerator stuff because we generally put interesting stuff or important stuff on our refrigerator. So, without snooping around, obviously you need to ask for permission, but so you don't snoop. But, it's interesting to see one's home. What does that indicate about them? Or their wardrobe. What are they wearing? I mean, if the person has a Bengals hat on and a Bengals T-shirt, he might like football. Then again, he might not, but we at least have to ask, and that would be a good clue. So look around the home, and again, combined with those other things, and over time, I think that's a fairly easy way to at least identify a couple of gifts for the person.
And Mark, that's why you included that picture of the that backyard, right? Because we looked at that and said, boy, it's not that it's horrible in and of itself, but it doesn't look welcome. It's 5 minutes. All of a sudden, other neighbors would feel welcome. I wouldn't feel welcome coming over that, and I would feel bad for the person even. So I think you're looking around, starting with the home is really, really important.
I think one positive benefit that we're going to receive from going out into the community and sharing our gifts or our talents with other folks out there and other citizens is that we will have a byproduct called belonging. And I think it's just really, really important to belong somewhere or to something. Now, it doesn't have to be a formal organization, but it could be. It doesn't have to be. But the question, where do you belong, or where do you feel like you belong? That's a powerful question, I think. I can tell you that is an answer to loneliness. If you belong somewhere, you will tend to be less lonely. I think that might be the only, well, not the only, that's a little too strong, but one of the major cures for loneliness would be to belong somewhere. People know your name, that one TV show where I like to go to a place where everybody knows my name. Well, of course we do. Where can I belong to? That's a great question to ask yourself and who you're working with or other people or friends. And again, you're going to find out where you belong, where you might feel like you belong by, again, exploring out in the community. So we have this is a nice picture of a softball team. That counts as belonging. I belong to the softball team. You might belong to a euchre club. You might belong to a community group. You might belong to the SPCA. The big thing I noticed about belonging is people receive something sort of tangible or visible that says, I actually belong here, whether it's a membership card or, a badge or something that says you belong. You're a member here. That means you belong. For us in the softball world or sports world, I think the biggest, greatest day for all of us, myself included, was when it was, we finally got our team shirt day. That was just a massive amount of fun, and everybody was very proud and really put on their shirts right away. And I think some of that was because you got a free shirt, but I also think the large reason that happened was because you really held it in your hand and said, wow, I belong with these other people. That is super powerful, especially for folks that are not used to belonging anywhere or who are on the fringe element stuff. Real quick, there was another story of a person I hooked up to a nursing home down in Harrison, Shawnee Springs, and went through a process to get him volunteer, pass the drug screen, all this stuff. I can tell you the payoff day for that fellow was when he got his shirt that said Shawnee Springs Volunteer. Again, very powerful. So belonging, I think, is an end goal that we're going to have. And again, it takes a little bit of time to do that. You can't just instantaneously join stuff necessarily.
Okay, and Mark, thanks for that. And also, I think part of that is that, remember, I think we get a lot of questions about how we started that. Well, part of that is about contributing. There's never been any group in all of history that has been accepted as fellow citizens if they don't contribute. And we don't mean this as if it's, you have to work program. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is self-worth, and that everybody has gifts. So the idea is it's a give and take relationship. That your connection with the community is your giving and taking. And we'll talk more about that later when we talk about engagement. But A is once we discover somebody's gifts, we want people to avail themselves of it so that they feel a sense of self-worth. They're giving of themselves, and that's what makes a relationship. There's no relationship if it isn't give and take. And so I just talked to a lady yesterday. I went to get my hair cut. This lady said, what do you do? I told her I work in the field of developmental disabilities. She goes, oh, I just met somebody yesterday, came in for a haircut. They were not able to talk, in her words. I'm saying it very simply. Were not able to talk, but they had they just liked everybody in here. It made our day just because they smiled and this woman patted us on the back. And she said, I'd love for her to come back anytime. And so that's an example. She had a gift of the heart, Mark, as you said, to contribute. People have skills. In these pictures, we're not going to go through, but you see lots of people. Well, I actually will focus on the middle one where you see all those people sitting there. None of those people, they came to get a meal and clothes that this place, my neighbor's place, was giving away. But what ended up happening is dialogue between people found out their own interests in natural conversation, and people were able to go from that event if they wanted to.
And this was it's literally all those pictures taken in 1 hour, a half, just a regular old community dinner over at my neighbor's place. And, a couple, real quick, the gifts, again, I think were contributing your gifts. Some folks just wanted to serve. That's great, right? Fill up some plates. Middle right, that's Kathy. Kathy just makes coffee. That's her big gift. She just cranks out coffee for everybody. Does it like 3-4 days a week, not just the community dinner. But that's kind of what her special gift and her way to contribute is making coffee. And boy, that's really appreciated by a lot of folks, especially in the winter or in the morning. You can walk into my neighbor's place and there'll probably be some coffee made, courtesy of Kathy. Also, bottom right is just guy Boston John. I think one of his gifts is he's just a great conversation. You see everybody sitting around the table just kind of listening to John tell stories. And that's it. I don't know the guy's last name, but I go up there, hey, John, and he's just very captivating to talk to. And so on many levels, you can give gifts. And again, it's pretty easy if you're out, have the right place to go.
One last thing on the slide too, Mark, is that a lot of people look at these and they think, well, you're talking about all folks that are high functioning and kind of lesser disabilities. We want to make a very clear point. When we say everybody, we mean everybody, most physically, intellectually challenged. So everybody has gifts and can participate. We know, we've seen it, and I will tell you it makes a difference. And there are so many people in the community that appreciate it because they see the effort being made. So please keep that in mind as well.
Another question that often comes up for folks is, well, what do you mean by engagement? What is engagement? What is the difference between an activity, and engagement? And we feel it is a big difference. There's nothing wrong with doing activities. We want you to do activities. They're fun. But we also do want to point out that when you do an activity, it's kind of you go do it, you enjoy yourself, and you go back home. You might randomly see a few folks or say hi or enjoy a ride with someone on the roller coaster. But the opportunity to actually start making relationships with other citizens usually kind of requires some form of engagement. Usually the great news about all that is all the typical interests that people have, whether it's arts and crafts or politics or animals or food or fitness or cooking or music. There are all activities of those, but there's also opportunities for engagement around that. So if you're doing arts and crafts and that's something you're interested in, you could just go to an arts and crafts fair and look around and walk and leave. Or you could get a booth and maybe, set something up. If you don't have anything to sell, you can go to Michael's and take a class with other citizens on a Saturday. And chances are you might be able to engage with those folks there, and who knows what would happen. You like animals. Okay, great. Well, you can just like animals, but you could also maybe choose to volunteer either at a cat scratch, or the scratching post for cats, SPCA. If that level of commitment is too strong, you could always just go to a dog park. And who's going to be at a dog park? People with dogs that like dogs and have dogs. And, you'd be surprised if you like dogs and they like dogs, you're going to have something in common. And your label, probably not going to matter so much. If they know you're a dog lover and I'm a dog lover, let's talk about dogs then. So the engagement piece is important. I think that you have to. This picture here was just a fellow. I didn't know this guy, and I was just sitting up in Loveland one day, waiting for Eric, actually, so I was working. And this fellow just kind of rode over, and we started, acknowledge each other, said hi, and I noticed his bike, and started talking about his bike, and hey, do you come up here to bike ride? And because it's near the Loveland bike trail, and honestly, the answer was no. I mean, that was his excuse to go up there was, I'm going to ride bikes. But really, he just wanted to be at that square and talk to folks and engage with folks. So again, the strict activity would take my bike and we ride the bike trail and we don't talk to anybody. And that's still a good time, right? We did our activity. But for this fellow, it was more than that. And over the course of a half an hour, I found out he was a retired auto worker, had a couple of RVs, had traveled the whole country, and he knew a lot about Loveland. And the lady there just kind of wandered up, and she was asking for a good restaurant. And I just took that picture by luck right when he was kind of pointing, and he was telling her, that's the great place over there for Italian food if you like that. And to me, that was a little bit of engagement. So, again, it's not that difficult. We can always turn an activity into an engagement, usually by volunteering. Again, you can go to the Taste of Blue Ash if you like. But there's also groups all year round that prepare, ready for the Taste of Blue Ash. You're going to have much better luck, having relations with folks by getting together in one of those settings rather than just going and leaving. Same thing with parks. I'll be quiet. You can go to the park and sit on the bench and say, hey, I had a great time. Walk the, trail by yourself. That's all fine. That's great. But again, if you just go to most of the Hamilton County parks, there are tons of stuff going on, night hikes and, chances for rowboat club or whatever you're into. Again, just look into it a little deeper. I think that's the the advice, if I'm going to dispense any advice, is just look around and see if there's other ways to engage around that interest.
One of the things I'll comment on that before we get to the next slide is that I think a lot of staff, and I say that word, feel very awkward in the community. So when we talk about moving from activity to engagement, we get a lot of questions about how do you do that. One of the things, if you want the community to be hospitable, you have to be hospitable. And also, you have to broker the relationship in a way that you're not posing yourself, or poisoning yourself, I should say, as staff, but somebody that's just simply accompanying. You're with the person. You're just with the person because what you do and how you introduce yourself, what questions you ask of even this gentleman right here, if you have a person with a disability with you, remember you're representing that whole moment. So what you give off is exactly what you're going to get back.
We just understand that true community is really everywhere. There are 57, there used to be 52, but now there are 57 identified neighborhoods in Cincinnati. That's a whole lot of different neighborhoods. We understand that you cannot be proficient at knowing everything about every one of those 57 communities. Even after 10 years, I probably know a lot about 5, and I can fake 2 or 3 more. There are still 35 that I really, I know a guy that would help you in that area or a woman in that area that I don't know everything there is to know about Madeira. But please know that true community is everywhere. There are little pockets, 57 different neighborhoods, and it is sort of your role and your responsibility to investigate that area where you're working in. So if Tommy or Tina lives in Deer Park, it's kind of going to be on you to discover some things about Deer Park. Not that difficult. You've got some technology that you can Google, but that might get you started, but eventually you're going to have to hit the bricks out there. You're going to have to go exploring on foot and shake some hands. That would be good to do about the community. We understand it's going to be a little bit difficult at times, but you just have to get out. What makes a good match? I think proximity, the closest. We all want to start at the front door. Really, that's where we want to start. That opens up neighbors to you, right? I mean, if you're really hesitant about going out very far for a mile or 2 or 3 or 5. Hey, how about starting with the neighbors or the other residents of the apartment, or that can be key. Do we even know our neighbors? Introduce ourselves to the neighbors. Have we done anything nice for our neighbors? Many stories we have about those. One of the better ones was, person was kind of isolated on their street, and to make a long story even shorter, the couple neighbors up, the woman's husband died, and she really didn't have anybody to take her garbage can down anymore. And the fellow we was working with, we promptly said, I'll take him down. And as soon as he did that one gesture for her, it kind of changed everybody's perception. He was now sort of like welcomed, at least by this woman, and they went on to have a decent little relationship. It wasn't you get to come over for Christmas, but at the same time, she began to count on him and really appreciated that little gesture, and she would make him some cookies in exchange, and that's neighborly. So it could start really at your front door. I think the big thing that wherever you go, you want to look around and make sure that where you show up, you are treated very hospitably. That's a good sign on whether you're going to be included or not. Is the place you're going to and the people there, are they welcoming and are they hospitable? And I just took the picture there of a fellow that cooks Thursday mornings, cooks a free hot meal for everyone at this church. And, that was literally what he did as soon as I walked through the door. And you could just see the smile on his face, and his body language was just kind of really felt like, hey, you're here. That's the kind of greeting I would come to expect. Maybe not the first time, but rather quickly, once they get to know you, things change. So the very first time you go someplace, it might be, oh, who is this? This is a stranger. Or if I walk in, they're like, who's this kind of big, giant, ugly guy? If I go back 2 or 3 times, all of a sudden, that's not what they say anymore. They go, oh, hey, it's Mark. How you doing? Fine. And I think that works the same way with the folks we're working with and you too. First time it might be a little uncomfortable. You might be that worker person. with that one guy. But if you go back 2 or 3 or 4 times and really yourself open up to yourself and you be hospitable, I guarantee by the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th time, you're going to now have your name. It's going to be, Candace and Jimmy are coming out, right? And it will scour away those labels. People are no longer going to fill in your story for you, and they're going to really appreciate you for who you are. But you have to go back a couple times and start to do the relationship building. The only thing I want to say about this is that interest, there's such a wide range. We kind of went through many, many examples, from the animals to the antiques to computer games. Formal groups, certainly. You can join the Friends of the Library. You can join, that's Sukasa there. I was lucky enough to be invited by a friend, Michelle, who was fluent in Spanish, so that helped out a lot. But there are formal groups and associations, Make Madeira Beautiful, or, many, many formal things. That's great if that's the way you want to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also just really informal get-togethers. Folks meet at Panera. I think, once a week I know there's people that just, we're going to go that. We're going to go do our daily, monthly dinner. Even some fantasy sports teams, I think, are rather, I know a lot of guys that just get together to do these draft things, and rather informal, but again, it's just an excuse to get together. So whether it's, like I said, euchre night or grill outs or whatever, it really is just an excuse to get together. So pursue both, pursue whatever that person wants. You can do all the above. We're just going to real quick point out some good things in those 57 neighborhoods. A couple I know rather well. Price Hill, that's Dwight Young. He's really an awesome kind of a community organizer over there with Block Ministries. That's his group. His medium is coffee. So if you go to Black Coffee or Block Coffee, that's his coffee shop, and all are welcome. And from that, he has sort of gone on to do many, many things and involved a lot of citizens. But you're very welcome at Block Coffee over there in Price Hill, and with anything that Dwight's involved with. The Retreads up in Fairfield, that's a nice story. These are 2 sisters that started it. They just wanted to, again, give back something to the neighbors, and they felt like clothing was sort of their niche. The wonderful thing that happens often at all of these places is folks that start off as coming in and getting stuff or receiving stuff, they'll do that for a little bit, but then a transformation occurs after a while, and having built that relationship, that they're all of a sudden, they become, really part of that group and are now a giver, not just a taker. So the example there, we had one woman that kind of came up for kids because she had a couple of kids, came up for 6 months and knew everybody so well, and knew the folks who worked there, that they said, well, would you like to just kind of run the kids area? By run, we mean informally, right? Volunteer thing, you don't get paid, but she was like, sure. So, they gave her some things to do, which I think was dignity as well, right? But here now, you're not just a taker. You're going to give, and as a matter of fact, we're going to put you over all the whole kids department. So that's really wonderful transformation that oftentimes happens pretty frequently. Again, Northside is another one of those 57 communities that, I've had some experience in. It's just filled with great places. Tommy, it happens, on the corner of Hamilton and Chase. Great free place for arts, kids, and families. Another photo is just a couple citizens really just wanted to be hospitable to their neighbors. So their idea was to have a welcome guide and to make a welcome guide, and that's the book that they're holding up. And the thing was that all the other neighbors, they sold spots in the book to the businesses around there. Everything came out free. The Vermin Printing donated services. The graphic designers that lived in Northside donated their talent, and they put it in this little bag, along with some other things. And they knew a realtor, Libby, who also now does Wordplay, which is another wonderful place in Northside. But any new resident of Northside, they would put this little bag of treats and a guide in their house. That's pretty welcoming, in my opinion. But again, citizen-driven, right? And anybody was allowed to jump on board and help with that. So most of this, if not all of it, just comes down to how do we find our place in the world? How do we find our place in our community? You know, you use the maps that you got. That's great. You can use technology, use your gifts. Got to use your gifts to get out there in the community. I think the only thing it really takes is some courage. It really just takes some courage to say, I'm going to go out. It might be a little scary at first, but I want to belong somewhere, and I want to give my gifts. And if you have a little bit of courage and perseverance, it's going to work out just fine. And that's why I took that picture of that little girl kind of going, you know, looking into this giant crowd of a football game. I was kind of like, you know, she's kind of got to be a little intimidated, but, you know, by golly, she wanted to go to that football game and be with the crowd. So it was like, okay. But again, courage is just really the fearlessness is what we need a little bit of in you as a worker, and, you know, got to model that. So
before we get to this slide, I do want to say this too. A lot of people say, okay, what do we expect to do? Mark, Eric, you know, this is really good. We buy in, but what is the rule? You know, we've heard that the federal government, the state government, the department, you guys as the county board integration, we got to do it with that's really. It really boils down to this. Our job as providers and county boards, without exception, no matter what anybody tells you, is really easy in terms of understanding what our job by law is to create opportunity. To create opportunity. Do not get all messed up with all the ins, outs of it. To create opportunity. And the things that we presented today give you a means. The community. There are thousands, truly thousands of community people that want to help do their part. They also want to receive. They don't know the gifts of the people. So our job is to create opportunity, two-way opportunity to get and to give. It's that simple. So each day, as you do this work, you got to ask yourself, have I created opportunity or made attempts to create opportunity for the people we serve to engage, not simply do activities, with their communities, give their gifts, and also receive the great bounty that's out there from our community. So here we go.
Really, that's so necessary because that is going to be a difference maker. That's going to be a life enhancer. System stuff, that's great. We're a good system. You can get stuff from the system that Medicaid pays for or you can self-pay for. That's great. That's system stuff. But true care and other things and friends, Medicaid cannot buy you a friend. It just can't. It's impossible. We can't guarantee a friend in the community. All we can do is sort of put you in a position to make friends. Then it's on you or to build relations. Sometimes we do. We all know, again, real life kind of check. Not everybody likes me. Not everybody wants to be my friend. That's fine. But, you know, I luckily have a couple friends. And again, that's what we're saying. Kind of up to them. Give them the opportunity and then see what happens. But that's the only shot at, you know, at really a meaningfulness of life, I think. People are generally not paid to be.
So here we have the screen. We're asking you to be committed. We're committed. We're all in. Mark and I are all in. HCDDS, we're all in. So here we have give real tools, real help, real people are here for you. So we got a number of ways to get more assistance, more very personal consultation or group consultation, whatever you need. We have Mark up there with his email and with his phone, and we are both obsessive about responding for videos of real-life people now engaging with the communities. We have a number of stories so that you know that we do this. This isn't some ivory tower thing. You can really see real stories of real people doing this. We have a how-to toolkit. So if you email Mark and ask for those tools, we have very technical tools and conceptual ones, just about anything you need. You can request a webinar. If you want us to do a webinar around a specific piece of integration, we're happy to do that. You can request a professional consult. If you want to highlight your success, we really invite that. Take a video, send it to us. We'll put it on our web for you as long as it doesn't hold the ideas of connection, engagement, and positive successful stories. And then partnership ideas, we're always willing to be partner. The last thing I again, though, is this is for everybody that we serve. So many people, I mean, a lot of mothers that are concerned that couldn't possibly be talking about her kid because he's got significant disabilities. And I want to say everybody has a place. Mark's up point about finding a place. And this is the liberation of people from kind of isolation and loneliness. So
we just really want to thank you for listening, and hopefully want to thank you in advance for calling or reaching out to us, because we do want to support you. We need you to support us, and that's important. So anything you may need, whether it's information about a neighborhood, anything, a thought, an idea you have, please get a hold of myself or Eric, and we'll either love to do anything we can for you, and more importantly with you. So thanks for your time today.